All right, so hello everybody. Thank you everyone for taking the time. I know we haven't had a meeting since January. Actually, February we didn't do our training. We understand that it's important that we continue to sharpen our saw and make sure that we continue to learn and grow. It's something that's ongoing, that doesn't have a limit. Every day we have to continue to learn. So to continue the habit, we want to make sure that we do this. Today, we're going to be focusing on the Harris rating process. Thank you for lowering the sound. The Harris rating process and what that entails, how to go about it, what does it mean. We had a session a while back where we talked about the fact that this was going to come into effect, and I gave you a little bit of a heads up of what it meant. But not many of you have implemented it in any shape or form. So today, we're going to talk about how we implement it and what the process is like. And the process has two sides to it. One of them is when we hire the Harris rater, and another one is when the client hires the Harris rater. So there's two different things, and I want to touch upon those things. But before I go forward on those details, I want to make sure that we understand, where does that land in our process? Where does that land in our process? As a designer here at Flow Design, you've been empowered to lead, to design, to control the process and the projects, to communicate with the clients. All of you here at Flow Design design your own projects, which is a fortune that you guys all get the chance to do that. And that said, understanding the different components to the project will empower you to make the right decisions at the right time. So, as you know, we have established mandatory reviews of each one of the steps with different members of the team. And on our 4-step process, all of you have access to our contract, which tells you if you need to measure or not, what you need to measure, tells you a little bit of the ambition in a light kind of matter, very lightly, tells you a little bit of the must-haves on the project, which will be strengthened on step 2 with our envision, and also tells you the kind of general items we expect to produce for that particular project. The contract is the first thing that everyone always must read and understand. Our contract establishes the fact that any service is included and any service is not included. That's the first place where you're going to know whether we hire the Harris rater ourselves or not, because it will be a line item within our contracts. Is that clear? So that's going to start establishing that. Things I want you to look for in our contract that will tell you whether you need to have a Harris rater or not, if it wasn't included or if it was omitted. There are a couple of things you have to look into. The first thing that you got to look into is this a complete new construction project? And is it residential? Complete new home, for instance, or multiple homes. New construction, meaning there's nothing on the lot, you're going to go right up and it's going to be residential. If it is, a Harris rating will be required for you. Either you're going to provide it within the architectural office, or the client needs to provide it, but I want you to be aware that it will be required. Now, I guess let's continue with this one, and I'll tell you why it matters, so that I don't confuse things. So new construction, home, you have to do it, no matter the city, no matter the municipality. That's the base code now. It's required. Number 2, is it a full God? And I'm going for the biggest to the smallest now. So the biggest is a new construction. Is it a full God? If it is a full God of a residential building, it could be 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 unit, 4 unit, 5 unit, 6 unit, 7 unit. I don't care. If it is a dwelling unit and it's full God, you need to understand that a Harris rating will be required. Okay? You need to understand that, and I'll tell you more what the Harris rating entails and what it means, but I really just want to make sure, and this is how codes are written. It's called applicability, right? Like, let's see what's applicable. So you're now trying to establish, is it applicable that we're going to be needing a Harris rater? Yes or no? So full new home, yes. Full God, yes. Is it an addition of living space, inhabitable, 100 square foot, 1,000 square foot plus. If it is an addition of living space, inhabitable space of over 1,000 square foot, you will need to have a Hertz rating, essentially for the whole home. People don't like to hear that, but essentially for the whole home. So what you're going to see being done a lot is that they're going to be less than 1,000 square foot. A lot of the additions will try to be. We have one right now, Julio. I think that one's going to be triggered, but they're trying to be less than the 1,000 square foot. I put that on my contracts. Marcos may actually put that on his contract too. Like, hey, this is going to be less. This is going to be X. I have put it in bold, not to exceed 950 square feet or 980, because you don't want to cut it too close either. Okay. And they're measuring it in different ways, but in our way, for Hertz rating purposes, is the gross area that we care about. Exterior to exterior. If it is a new home, if it is over 1,000 square foot, if it is full gut, it will require a Hertz rater. Sometimes I put on my contract, it will likely require a Hertz rating. It will, because sometimes the inspectors that kind of let it slide in some areas, but I don't want to not protect myself to tell the client. Clients get upset if we don't tell them that this is required. That's why we want to make sure that they know that this is required. Okay. This is something that sets us apart as professional architects versus someone doing it out of their basement that doesn't know the code and what's going on. So we know this. So new home, full gut, and an addition of over 1,000 square foot. Now, if you're doing number 4, you would say, Darwin, what if I'm doing an ADU that's 900 square feet? Will I need a Hertz rating? The answer is yes. It is a new dwelling. So if it is a new dwelling, it is comprised within the new dwelling. So you should have or would have a requirement for a Hertz rating. Now, keep in mind, you as a designer, keep it in mind, but it is really the responsibility of the owner to acquire those services. It's not our responsibility to acquire those services. We submit it and provide it as a service to basically to have more control over the process, but it is not something that we're supposed to do. Just like the survey is supposed to come from the client, technically all surveys and civil engineering services should generally come from the client. Civil and survey are generally client-oriented services, but you need to be aware of these things so that you can say things like, you may be required to provide a Hertz. If you don't have one, we can get one. We can send you a list of Hertz raters, which we have a list, by the way. So we don't necessarily have to retain them ourselves. We can have the client retain them themselves. Marcos and I are pushing towards the client kind of hiring their own Hertz rater themselves, but we understand there are sophisticated clients that this may not apply for. Anybody wanted to say something real quick? Good. All right. So ADU additions or any new home, a tiny home of 900 square feet, they will have to do it. There is a little gray area there, but they will likely have to do it. And I haven't spoken about what it is yet or any of that, but I want you to first know in the contract, am I going to be required to provide, or someone needs to be providing a Hertz rating, yes or no? Okay. Once you know that is yes, you need to ensure that your drawings reflect that a Hertz rating will be provided. And in that case, we've been doing something called, when we call it, and by the way, and I'm going to get into what the Hertz rating has so that you understand it, but in our drawings, the level of information that we provide, if a Hertz rating is included versus not included, it's different. If a Hertz rating is included and is required, and you know it's required, you may put the notes refers to Hertz rating for window U value and R value, for wall R value, for roof R value. You may say the words in bold, pointing at the wall. Just say the assembly of the wall when it comes to 2x6, all of those other, what it's made out of. But insulation value refers to Hertz rating report. We do not want to hold that liability for the R value. If they get it wrong on site because we told them R60 on the roof when they actually were not supposed to do R50, and that's actually a high. But anyway, we will actually be owning that liability. Now the Hertz rater is becoming a consultant now, and they take on anything home energy rating systems requirements. They're taking on that liability, not us. Does it make sense? So when you're doing the define stage, you're going to be aware that that's required. On the vision stage, you're going to be aware whether that's required or not, so that you start thinking about the assemblies and how this thing is going to be put together. But most of those systems will be prescribed. No, it's not prescribed because the code, by the way, can be performance or prescriptive. For the energy rating, it is performance based. Performance based is it must perform at X particular level. So they will test the actual house to make sure that it performs. When you are listing R values and requirements, that's prescriptive. You're listing those items. The home energy rating is a performance-based code and it's mandatory. Okay. When you're designing, not much needs to be done other than to tell if we hire the Hertz rater, hey, 22 Peter Johnson Road will be requiring a Hertz rating. I would like you to put it on your queue. And I'll give you the contact information of the one that we are kind of exclusively using right now. So we're using home energy raters based out of Sagamore Beach. I think it's in Massachusetts. But they are very good. They're one of the biggest. They were the ones that did the training. Chris is a friend of mine. He sent Andrew. Andrew was here on that training. So we will be sending them literally just, hey, Mr. Herb and AJ. Those are the names now. When you watch this video, it may be another company if somebody else is watching it in the future. But right now it's AJ and Mr. Herb. This property, please put it on your queue. We're going to be needing a Hertz rating. At this point, you don't have enough information on step 3 to really give them anything. No base plans, nothing like that. But as soon as a plan is selected and you have your permit set pretty much finalized, I would like you to send it to RJ and Herb. CC me, because I deal with all contract negotiations on that, and send it to them, along with a survey document that we have created here at Flow Design Architects that you're going to pre-fill. So as you're doing this permit set, you should be pre-filling that form and asking the client or the contractor or whoever is involved in the project some general information. You may not know all the answers to that information, but at least some general information. And I'll show you the form so that we can understand what those things are. Are we good so far? So far, so good. So we've created this form called Initial Home Energy Rating Assessment. This form is accessible to all of you. It's free. There's nothing crazy about it. In fact, I'm gonna share the link with you guys. You guys will have it. If I were you, I would save it on a little, sheet on your desktop. You can even drop this as a link on your desktop, by the way. And what is it going to ask for? Well, in Massachusetts, the Hertz rating, energy rating system rating is required for certain types of projects to ensure compliance with the energy code to promote energy efficiency. This includes new construction, full gut renovation, or addition exceeding 1,000 square feet. This is going to be fitting in your head every single day. New construction, full gut. That also includes change of use. I didn't mention that, but if it's going from a commercial use to a residential use, it's basically the same thing as a full gut because it has to comply with all the code. And all of you should be aware of different levels of alteration, or at least have heard the concept of levels of alteration. Have you guys heard that? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Level 1 and 2 are pretty basic. Level 3 gets into additions and change of occupancy and additions of over 50% of a building. And then move into full compliance with the International Building Code and all the code requirements. Okay. So we typically want to run away. Clients want to run away from more than 50% renovation. Clients want to run away from full compliance because it costs money to them. And it involves also MAB requirements. It involves all requirements of the building code. Now, a little segue there. And I know it's a lot, so just you can watch this at your leisure and kind of understand it. We'll ask more questions at the end. But you put your email, you put the project name and number, you put the permit number, if there is one. Sometimes there are projects that will come back after they already had a permit because the inspector notices that, hey, they didn't have a Hertz rating here. What's going on? So there may be a permit number and you just put it in here so that we know. With the new construction, is it modular? Is it renovation only? Is it addition? Is it addition and renovation? Why do we care about this project type? Anyone? No. Well, I can answer if nobody. Felipe, can you answer? Okay, so we care about this. There's two reasons. This form is not even for us. It's actually for the Hertz raters. We're going to give it to them. They rate buildings differently depending on the construction type. So this is before they create the HERS rating package, by the way. This is before. They just need to know, is this new? Is this modular? Is it renovation? Is it addition? Is it addition and renovation? So that they tell their team of designers, they have an office literally of raters. So there is energy modelers, which I'm one, and then there's HERS raters, and then there is RFIs, which are the guys that go to the field. So, and I'll explain a little bit more of that too. And if I missed it, remind me that I'm going to explain a little bit of the role of each one of those. So you kind of get an idea of what's going on. It's pretty awesome. So they need to know what this is. A modular homes tend to have some problems that new construction don't have, although they are a type of new construction, but the air leaks in between the floor joists and the adjacent walls with other units if they have multiple. So they have a way of rating them differently and understanding how to mitigate that problem. So that's why they need to know that. What's the square footage, total square footage, gross of the addition? Full gutting existing home, services needed. So there are generally 3 services you're going to be needing. Energy compliance, which is the HERS rating report that you need no matter what, right? Incentives is clients that just upgraded some systems and they may want to just get the rebates from the city, from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So they may actually ask for a HERS rating package from us or from the home energy raters to just get the incentives. The incentives will cover a lot of the cost of the rating itself, and it will be like very profitable. The error barrier seal, you probably heard a little bit of that from Mr. Andrew when he came. It's basically making sure that your building doesn't leak air. So that's a service that home energy raters of Massachusetts provide that seals your home. That's just a service. We may have that. Most of our case will be energy compliance, energy code compliance. I think all of them. Certification. Sometimes some homes may be required to be certified Energy Star or Passive House. I don't know what's going on here. I hear some banging. So Passive House certification. By the way, Passive House is yet another requirement that's being imposed on the super stretch code communities like Somerville. So I will not get into that right now. But there's other requirements. We most of the time put minimum code requirements. We check it off. Okay, we check that one off. What kind of heating source we're going to be using? Fossil fuels are being banned in Massachusetts, but if they already have a line, they could reuse it. It's just going to be a little bit harder to get the home energy rating index that you need. And I'll explain what that is in a minute. But, most of the time I just assume electric. But this is something you should call the owner and say, hey, or send a link to the owner. Hey, could you fill whichever items you can here? And I'll fill the rest so that they do it. Okay. And you can go into this. Name and address where the checks will go. You should be putting the name of the client and their address so that any incentives go to them. It may be the case that the home energy raters send the incentive checks to Flow Design Architects, at which point we will basically issue a check to the owners. We shouldn't be keeping any of that money. So that hasn't happened yet. So we don't know. Project timeline, when do they think that permitting is going to happen, frame is going to happen? You can infer that, meaning guess it. It takes about 30 days to get a building permit issue anywhere except Somerville or Boston. So, but you can infer, like if they submit everything by Friday, give it 30 days, then they will probably start enabling, which is cleaning the site for the first week, do demolition 2 weeks after. You can start kind of coming up with some numbers. If not, you can just ask the client and the contractor about it. Plan building permit day, estimated demolition date, estimated project completion. Those are all estimated. No worries about that. Then you will print this to PDF. Literally, you go into response. Julio actually filled one out himself for the client, which is good. You did that. So print to PDF and send to AJ and Herb and say, hey, AJ, remember the project I mentioned to you, schematic design, 23 Peter Solaris Road. I'm just making up that name. Here's a report. I'm going to be sending you shortly the permit set after so that they can set it up on the queue. Time is of the essence, guys. It takes about 3 days to get a return projected HERS rating. So you don't want to be messing around with that. It takes some time to get that. So going back to this, I'm mentioning things you guys don't understand yet. So I'll explain more of what the process of the Harris rating entails. But on this package right here, I want you to do your best if a Harris rating is required to on our second sheet on our set, which is the T102. Um, Create a nice little table, which you have a table, but add some items and literally call energy compliant. And maybe we're going to create one standard at the office. I don't know if Jose was able to create one, but it's so that we can say gross area. It's not for zoning and it's not for building departments. It's for the Harris rater. Okay. So area, expected R value, things like that, like general information. If you could get infiltration volume, that would be amazing. But I don't think you know what infiltration volume is. So that's fine. But it will be the whole volume outside, like a box of the entire space. You can get it easy in Revit, actually. But it will help the Harris raters because what they do, and I'll explain to you what they do in a minute. But they need all these items. Most important is clarifying very, very well where the addition is, what the area of the addition is, and your sections, you need to have really clear sections that show what's going on so that they know what's going on, whether it has a slab underneath or not on the first floor, whether it's a crawl space, whether it is, on sonotubes or a full foundation or a half foundation. Things like that need to be clear, which they're clear on their drawings. So you just make sure generally that's good there. That said, I'm going to pull up one of the recent sets that we did where Julio literally put refers to Harris rating, 133 Lake, right? So pretty straightforward project. Mr. Julio Gutierrez did that. Okay, thank you so much for fixing the name. All right, so this was the project. It's coming up. This was the project. It's a full gut renovation, but then now we decided to demo the whole house. And he literally put what the existing areas are and what the proposed areas are. So this is the volume. This is where they're going to be calculating the volume based off because the whole building is going to be new. Okay. So he didn't have that table. We haven't necessarily created it or used it yet, but here's where I want that table with those information in there. But you would see that he's not going to be calling in detail all of the sections and things like that, because it's all going to be, it should have sections, but it should be all referred to the Harris rater. Now, one thing that he did do is because Andrew did give us the value that we need. So we need literally most of the time 0.3 for the U value of the windows. So he did provide that. But if you were, and then also that's the doors, the exterior doors only, by the way, and then the U value of the windows. So that's there because Andrew provided us with that sheet. So I think we're gonna be having that pre-filled there. But if there was are there sections, Julio, there? I don't think so. Yeah, we kept it very simple. But in the section, it would just literally say, refer to Harris rater. Well, I don't have it here, but yeah, it would just say that. Okay, so this is a simple set. The Harris rater will take it from there and do the entire projected Harris rate. Now, what does a Harris rating process entail? What is it, Darwin? Like we're talking about when is it required? We're talking about how to do it, like what to do in our drawings. But what does it look like to do that? So here RJ, I'm gonna get from RJ or from Herb a quick document that will tell us very quickly what that looks like. Any questions so far, though, as I'm pulling up the stuff? Questions at all? So you would see that we're not specifying any exact R values because the Harris rater will do it. So we're just telling them that it is a 2x6 wall and he's going to have a zip system outside and all that. But we're not telling them anything on the R values because that's going to be owned by the Hertz rater. So that's another set I wanted to show you because we've been doing it recently on some projects. So RJ, let's get this thing here. Okay. So second. All right. So this is going to help. I got it. So what does the Hertz rating report processing entail? So the Hertz rating process could be generally divided into 3 steps. Step 1 is called a projected Hertz. You sound really good when you know this term, so memorize them. So the first thing that we're going to be getting when we get the permit set and we send it to Herb is a projected Hertz. I'm going to show you what it looks like. It is basically what we do on drawings, or drawings are a design intent, but they don't necessarily meet the code. Like drawings don't meet the code. The building is the one that will eventually meet the code. We show a design intent to how we believe the code will be made. So they're going to create a projected Hertz, and the projected Hertz is a package that will project what the energy index or consumption of this particular building is, how efficient this building is. It includes general information of what they estimate you're going to be using for dishwasher, what you're going to be using for ranch or stove, what you're going to be using for microwave, what you're going to be using for washer and dryer. That's why it's important to tell them what you think the type of fuel is going to be: electric, gas, or propane, or if it's going to be oil. So because they are going to start looking for efficient units to use on that. So it includes a projected Hertz, which indicates an index of the projection for the particular project, like how much is going to consume. Step 2 is called mid-inspection. By the way, the projected Hertz is done by an energy modeler in-house. Is someone certified, and he has a Hertz rating number, but it's certified by the Hertz rater, not by the energy modeler. So the Hertz rater actually certifies it. So mid-inspection is done by someone called an RFI, which is literally some person that will walk the site and see the site. Why are they looking for on the mid-inspection? Mid-inspections are done once framing is completed and insulation is installed. After insulation is installed, they will do that mid-inspection. You cannot have a mid-inspection when sheetrock is put on the walls. Why? Anybody knows why we can't do a mid-inspection if the sheetrock is already installed? How can you check the insulation value? It's impossible, right? You can't see the insulation. So they need to have passed. Rough plumbing needs to be passed. Rough electrical needs to be passed. Framing and insulation need to be passed. At that particular point, mid-inspection happens. And they go check all the ductwork. That's why the HVAC needs to be passed. All the rough mechanicals need to be passed. They check all the ductwork. They check that there's no leakage, that there's nothing going on that will make it so that they will fail a final inspection. Because if they fail a final inspection, and I'm already telling you the third step, it will be almost impossible to pass it. Really, this mid-inspection is super, super critical. If you don't do this mid-inspection right, or they miss it, there are going to be people going to court to fight, because it's going to be very, very difficult to pass it if they didn't insulate properly, if they didn't have the right average. So an RFI or actual Hertz rater could do it too. A full Hertz rater goes to the site. They have nails and they do holes on the insulation to check the thickness of the insulation. They also have like some things to make holes in the insulation. They check the depth of the insulation. They record it on a form, just like the form that we have. They use some sophisticated apps. They take pictures of all the insulation and save it all up. They take pictures of any mechanical units installed, the specs of the mechanical units, anything that's already installed. They take pictures of it. They also go into the attic and they check the depth of the insulation in the roof, if there is any. So they got to have access to that. So they check all of that stuff, make sure that everything is good. At that point, they also check windows. because you cannot pass rough plumbing, electrical, and framing if you don't have the windows installed, because water will get in, right? Like that's a problem. So they will check if their windows are as per the specifications that we require. If they don't, then they will ask for them to be replaced. At that point, it's not too costly to replace a window because trim inside and outside hasn't been installed. There's no trim. It's weather tight. You could just have the zip system outside. There's no trim. So it is important, very important, that they don't miss that mid-inspection. It's very, very, very important. Okay. So they record all of that. You're all good. What's your role in that sense? If we didn't hire the Hertz Rater, we have no role. We have no say. We don't have to do anything. But in good faith, you should, because we are familiar with the construction, you should be emailing the client saying, hey, make sure that before they close the walls, they call the Hertz Rater for an inspection. That's acting in good faith as a good professional. You know that that's going to be needed. You do that. If we hire the Hertz Rater, we should be coordinating with the client when this inspection is going to happen and make sure that we call them and schedule it, literally ourselves. That's another reason why Marcos doesn't want to get involved in that stuff. It's like, well, am I going to add more work for me? Like, no. The profit doesn't justify the necessity to do it. So I personally like doing it. I became a projector Hertz Rater, like energy modeling. I like this process, understanding it. I think it empowers you to know this stuff, like, oh, what's going on here, what's going on next. So it really empowers you as a designer to know what's going on. So, you call them up, schedule the appointment, make sure it's good. Tell the client that they're going to be coming on Monday morning to do the inspection. And if they don't show up or the door is closed, that we're going to charge them for it. You guys know me very well as the invoice guy, right? Like I will, always charge the client. So that's that. Now, most likely you wouldn't, even if we hire the Hertz Raters, call them. You probably will tell Darwin or office manager at that particular time, if we have an office manager, to make that call. We'll train them to do that. So that you can just focus on design, which is what you should be doing most of the time, So step 3 is the final inspection. The final inspection, they go there on site. And by the way, you see it right here. So like, I'll scroll down in a second. So the final is where they literally test the entire house and they get the final index. One was the projected index. The final will be the performance of it. They test the leakage on the house. They open a door. They put basically like a fabric on that door with one hole, and they start either blowing air into the house or sucking air outside of the house. What does that do? That tells them how much air is coming out of this house. Like if infinite air keeps coming out, it's because windows are open, things are problematic, this thing is not sealed. Right? If almost no hair is coming out, that's very important for them because it means that it's tight. That's what they want. They want a very tight, almost watertight building. It's almost impossible to do that. Things that trigger failures on final inspections. The toilets are installed, they pass rough plumbing and everything, but the toilets don't have water in them. So because you know how the water and the toilets and sinks have a trap? If they dried out because they haven't been used in the house, so it will be hot, getting all the air from the roof vents that the toilets have, as you guys know, right? Or from the HV, or from the the fans. Like if the fan in the bathroom is installed and it's not properly tampered, the air just comes right out. A window may be open. Things like that may happen, right? That triggers a failure. Typical failures too are like if caulking wasn't done properly on all the electrical and all the plumbing, all this ductwork needs to be nicely caulked, nicely tight. That will trigger problems with the air, to the basement, because most basements are unconditioned space. They're basically treated as outside space. So if there's leakage between the floor and the other floor, things gonna go right through. The holes may be too big for like any, baseboards, and then air just comes right through it. So that triggers failure most of the time. One thing that fails at too is if they don't install something called ERV, which is an energy recovery ventilator. That's required. You're like, what's going on? What is that? And Andrew mentioned it, but you guys probably don't remember. But they make you make this building very, very tight. So no air from the outside comes in. But we need new air to augment the air that's coming from the HVAC unit. And we can't just get cold air coming right into a heated space. That would be insane. That's like, why would you do that? It's like opening a window and having the heat to 75. Like, that's insane. So what they created is a system called energy recovery ventilator that gets installed typically on basements or attics, right? And what it does is that it takes air from the outside in and from the inside out, and it preheats it so that the new air that's coming from the outside is not cold, like negative 10 degrees, and it's already coming almost preconditioned, but it's bringing fresh air. Because during COVID, what we learned, and that's part of all of this, believe it or not, it's all related. We learned that, homes weren't breathing or whatever, but you need new air so that you don't get sick. So they install that system so that they create that. If you don't have an energy recovery ventilator in your building, that will be the client's responsibility. They will fail immediately. It's required to have it. You will fail immediately. So that's what we're doing right now in Alberta. They don't have that. They can't sell the property. They don't get a final certificate of occupancy until they install that. So that's that process. Aren't you glad I took the Home Energy Raiders class? I know all this stuff, ins and out, every detail. So that's it. That's the process right here. They recommend kind of like a preliminary site inspection. Most people don't want to pay for it, so we don't want to do it. But we would do the mid-inspection, which is the installation inspection, and we would do the final inspection, which is mandatory. And they want to know, what's the lighting? What's the, are there Energy Star appliances? Are there LEDs? Is there a fan in the bathroom? Is the energy recovery ventilator, ERV, installed and operational? All of that stuff. It needs to be EV ready, right? Like the site plan is to show that you can connect an electric vehicle there. So things like that. These are the costs. Now, if anybody's watching it from the public, those are not your prices. Those are our prices. We mark that up. And this is the company that we use, Home Energy Raiders, based out of Sagamore Beach. Now, any questions so far on this? Because I'm going to show you what a Home Energy Rating Index projector rating looks like real quick. Any questions? Yeah, no, maybe. Everybody hungry? Okay. So this is what a projected Hertz rating index package looks like. Couple things I want you to know. The Massachusetts code tells you where you need to be at for each one of those conditions that we determined before. If it is a new home, if it is a full gut renovation, if it is using gas or all electric, there's different requirements on the code depending on that. We want to make sure that for all kind of new buildings, we can be a little higher, but we are like on the 50, 55, 60. Now, the lower the number, the tighter the home, which is kind of opposite. The lower the number, the more energy efficient the home is. If it goes here, this is net zero, guys. This is where net zero goes. Most of our houses are going to be here. I will unlikely see a home that's going to be less than 40. Very, very difficult. Now, hold on. We're using the framework of design excellence. We have clients that want something like that. We can provide that. Make sure that they have solar panels and all that stuff. But it will be very difficult to get those homes to that level. Most homes are right here, not efficient at all. Okay. This is what the index looks like. Couple things about the index. Tells you what their savings or costs or utilities will be annually. They actually calculate that based on the rates that the utility provides. The codes are being used in reference on the index. This case is probably going to be based on the 2021. Who the energy rater is, the licensed energy rater, in this case is Andrew, who you met, by the way. Who the rating company is, you already know that. And then there's a provider. This is very complicated, guys. I don't expect you to know all this stuff, but there is a provider that gives them the license to, I couldn't be an energy rater unless I signed up with a provider to provide those services to us. Okay, it tells you a summary of all the items that we discussed, what the R value of the floor are, what the U value and solar heating coefficient of the windows are, what the ceiling value is, if there is an unconditioned attic, if you have the insulation in the ceiling, that's what you use it for. The insulation between floors doesn't matter for them. believe it or not. So they could be non-insulated if you didn't care about that. So the leakage, things like that, that's there. They have to have the signature here. I guess these guys just put a stamp. I don't know. And that's that. This is the software that they use. There's two softwares. One's called RemRate and one is Ecotrope. I am pretty good, very proficient with Ecotrope. I have no idea how to use RemRate. So that's that. And they go into summary, into all that stuff. If you wanted to check it, how many times have I read this in my life? None. I just forward it to my client and they apply for their building permit and we're done. If we are applying for the building permit as a service, then we're the ones that are responsible to upload it to the system. That's not typical, but that's that. And that, my people, is the process of getting a home energy rating and the relationship that you have with them. They will do all those inspections, they pass the inspection, and then you're done. Any questions on these? If not, you guys can enjoy your lunch, but I expect at least one question. Felipe, how has your experience been with RJ and Herb?
Well, they don't answer really fast, so that's one that's one challenge. We need to be very careful, right? But other than that, is yeah, if you follow the steps, and it's pretty simple, right?
Julio, any experience with them?
No, the same things. Like they take some time. So it's always good, like if you know, like if your project is going to have a hairs, um, you should contact them right away. That's pretty much.
You should call them. It's better than emails.
Yeah.
That's right. Be good with their names. You know, hey, may I speak with Herb or may I speak with RJ? Because that helps too. Otherwise, they think that you're just a new client and they want to send you to a list. They're very busy, so they send you to an online. It's like, oh, we don't have time. So that's that. Anyone from Julio's side have done anything with hers? I think Nicole been a little bit involved with that.
I have, but like very little, like on the side, not like directly, like Udi and Felipe.
As I would mention, he's very intrigued with that side of things. I'm more like you hire your own first rater, you deal with that. But I think that we need to, as a team, be able to understand exactly what the requirements are and what our drawings have to say. Because at the end of the day, what we provide is architectural services. We are not hearse raters, but we need to make sure we understand what the code says. So it's important for us to always be aware of the requirements with energy efficiency and make sure that we redirect like the information if we are not being hired to do the work, of course.
Excellent, excellent. There were always some misconceptions that we've been dealing with at the beginning with whether it's required for commercial or not. There is some minor little requirements on the commercial side, very simple things, but it's not really created for commercial buildings. It's mostly created, and it's only related basically to the HVAC of the commercial building, but it's not related to much more other than that. So it is all for homes, residential. A project like, the MOC projects will require that. Those kinds of projects will require that. You look really, really good when you're able to speak to it at a meeting. Tim was aware of some of my talks when I was at the MOC meeting, where I was able to talk to them really clearly about the requirements. It really gives them trust. You're like, wow, these guys know what they're doing. That's very good. Another reason why I think, but that class helps because our clients are going to get very sophisticated, but they also are not hands-on. They're hands-off, meaning they're going to tell you, why didn't you do that? You should have done that. Right? Like they are going to expect that you're going to know that that's required. So, and we don't want to get into you say, I say. It's more like, well, who is the most likely person to understand this? The architect. Okay. So then the architect should be the one explaining it. Most of these guys don't like talking too much. They don't explain things too much. It's very difficult. All consultants, you're going to figure something out on consultant side. Sometimes we have to speak for them, to be honest. They're like, they want to say one sentence and done, like we're out, you know. But our role really is a little more broad, and that's why we tend to hire consultants under us. And by the AIA contracts, we actually manage all of them under us. Now, that said, I think this was a great training. I hope you guys liked it. Pretty straightforward stuff. I will likely send projected HERS to you guys now to look at. I sometimes send emails, and I know you probably may not look at them because it's a lot going on. But now that you can relate to this content, you might peruse through it and understand it. I also send the link to our form so you guys have it handy. And me, the way I work, you guys understand that I don't want to babysit anybody. I want to empower people. So I will just likely say, hey, here's the form, go. And then from there on, you do it. I think that that's been key in how many of the people that work directly day to day with me has grown, like Felipe and Tim and even Julio, because I don't babysit too much. I empower you once and you go. So now if I work with Rai or I work with Nicole, I literally would say, here's Herb, here's RJ, here's the form, go. And then you manage it, you call it, you get to know them. And I've noticed a change in all of us at the office because of that, because we're all like empowered. All right. That's it. Go enjoy your lunch, and I'll leave you 10 more minutes to spare. Bye-bye.